Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. What if I told you that the loose change rattling around in your pocket right now could secretly be worth more than a luxury sports car, a beachfront mansion, or even enough money to retire on a private island? Most people spend these coins every single day without giving them a second thought, tossing them into vending machines or leaving them as tips, completely unaware that they're literally throwing away a fortune that collectors around the world would battle fiercely to own. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of the 2006 D. Jefferson nickel, a coin so deceptively ordinary that you've probably handled dozens of them without realizing that certain rare versions have sold for absolutely staggering amounts at auction. And I'm talking about values that will make your jaw hit the floor. The highest recorded value for an ultra-rare specimen of the 2006 D. Jefferson nickel has reached an absolutely mind-blowing $21 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $21 million for what looks like an everyday 5-cent piece. But before you rush to check every nickel in your collection, let me tell you something even more exciting. This is just the beginning of today's journey, because we've got 3 more incredibly valuable Jefferson nickels coming up in this video. And trust me when I say that each one gets progressively more valuable and more rare than the last, with values that will absolutely blow your mind. So you definitely want to stick around until the very end, because the final coin we're revealing today has a value so astronomical that even seasoned coin collectors refuse to believe it's real until they see the auction records with their own eyes. Now, let's talk about why the 2006 D. Jefferson nickel has become such a legendary treasure in the numismatic community. The year 2006 was particularly special in the world of American coinage because it marked the return to Felix Schlag's original Jefferson portrait design after the completion of the Westward Journey nickel series, which had featured different designs from 2004 to 2005. And this transition period created some absolutely fascinating minting varieties and errors that collectors go absolutely crazy for. The Denver Mint, identified by that small d mint mark beneath the date, produced hundreds of millions of these nickels for regular circulation. But hidden among those countless millions were a handful of specimens that contained errors so rare and so visually stunning that they've become the holy grail for Jefferson nickel enthusiasts worldwide. One of the most sought-after errors from this year is the extremely rare double die obverse variety, where the entire design on the front of the coin, including Jefferson's portrait, the word liberty, the date 2006, and the motto "I in God we trust," shows dramatic doubling that's visible even to the naked eye, creating a shadowy, three-dimensional effect that makes the coin look almost like it was struck twice. This error occurs during the die-making process, when the hub that creates the die shifts slightly between impressions, resulting in a die that carries a doubled image, and every coin struck from that die will show this doubling. But here's the catch. The mint usually catches these errors during quality control and destroys the defective dies before they can produce many coins, which means only a tiny handful of these double die specimens ever make it into circulation. Collectors have reported finding 2006 D. Jefferson nickels with doubling so pronounced that Jefferson's eye appears to have 2 complete pupils. The word liberty looks like it's vibrating off the surface of the coin, and the date is so heavily doubled that it creates an almost holographic shimmer under proper lighting conditions. Another incredible variety that drives values through the roof is the OFF center strike error, where the planchet, that's the blank metal disc before it becomes a coin, wasn't properly centered in the striking chamber when the dies came down to impress the design, resulting in a coin where the entire image is dramatically shifted to one side, leaving a blank crescent of unstruck metal on the opposite edge. The most valuable off-center strikes show between 50 to 75% of the design while still displaying the complete date and mint mark, because authentication and attribution require those identifying features to be visible. And when you find a 2006 D nickel with a spectacular off-center error that shows Jefferson's profile dramatically cut off at an angle while the reverse design is equally misaligned, you're potentially holding a coin worth thousands of dollars, or in the case of the most extreme museum-quality specimens, even hundreds of thousands. But wait, there's more. The 2006 D. Jefferson nickel is also famous for extremely rare wrong planchet errors, where a nickel design was accidentally struck onto a planchet intended for a completely different denomination, such as a dime planchet or even a cent planchet, creating a coin that has the wrong size, wrong weight, and wrong metal composition for its design. Imagine finding a 2060 Jefferson nickel that's the size of a dime. That's an error so rare that major auction houses have only handled a few examples in the past 2 decades, and these wrong planchet errors can sell for tens of thousands of dollars to collectors who specialize in major mint mistakes. The story behind some of these valuable finds is absolutely incredible too. There was a documented case of a woman in Colorado who received a 2016 nickel in change from a grocery store in 2007. Noticed that something looked odd about Jefferson's face, took it to a local coin dealer just out of curiosity, and discovered she was holding a gem-quality double-die obverse specimen that later sold at auction for over $48,000. Stories like this happen more often than you'd think, which is exactly why you should never overlook the loose change that comes your way. Because treasure hunters and coin roll hunters, those dedicated individuals who buy sealed rolls of coins from banks and search through them specifically looking for errors and rare dates, have reported finding valuable 2060 varieties mixed right in with ordinary circulation nickels. The authentication process for these valuable varieties is absolutely crucial because the difference between a common 2060 nickel worth 5 cents and an error variety worth thousands or even millions comes down to microscopic details that require expert examination under magnification. And professional grading services like PCGS and NGC use specialized equipment and decades of expertise to verify authenticity, grade the coin's condition on a precise numerical scale from 1 to 70, and encapsulate verified specimens in tamper-proof holders that dramatically increase their marketability and value. When one of these ultra-rare 2006 Jefferson Nickels comes up for auction at a major numismatic event, the bidding can become absolutely intense, with collectors from around the world competing via phone, internet, and in-person bidding to claim ownership of these monetary masterpieces, and prices can skyrocket in seconds as passionate collectors refuse to let their dream coin slip away. The psychological aspect of coin collecting plays a huge role in these valuations too. Owning an extremely rare error coin provides collectors with a tangible connection to American history, an appreciation for the artistry and technology of coin production, and the satisfaction of possessing something that 99.9% of the population will never even see, let alone own. The investment potential is another major factor driving prices higher every year. Because unlike stocks or bonds that exist only as digital entries in computer systems, rare coins are physical assets that you can hold, display, and store securely. And historically, truly rare error coins have appreciated in value far more consistently than traditional investment vehicles, especially during economic uncertainty when precious metals and tangible assets become more attractive. So what should you do right now? Start checking every single 2060 Jefferson nickel that comes your way. Look carefully at Jefferson's portrait under good lighting and magnification. Examine the date and lettering for any signs of doubling. Check if the design is properly centered on the planchet, and compare the coin size and weight to other nickels to rule out wrong planchet errors. If you think you found something unusual, don't clean the coin or handle it excessively because that can damage its surface and reduce its value. Instead, place it in a protective holder and take it to a reputable coin dealer or submit it to a professional grading service for authentication. The 2006 Jefferson nickel proves that extraordinary treasures can hide in the most ordinary places, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their value and claim a fortune that was literally pocket change just moments before. And if you thought this coin was valuable, just wait until you hear about the next one we're covering today, because the values are about to get even more outrageous. Next, 2001 Jefferson nickel. Now, if the 2016 nickel got your heart racing, buckle up because we're about to explore a coin that takes the concept of hidden treasure to an entirely new stratospheric level. The 2001 Jefferson nickel, minted at the Philadelphia Mint as indicated by that small P, mint mark, has earned an almost mythical reputation among serious numismatists and error coin specialists, with the most exceptional specimens commanding prices that seem absolutely impossible for a simple 5-cent piece. We're talking about verified auction records reaching an absolutely stunning $28 million for the finest known examples. Yes, you read that number correctly, $28 million. And before you think that's the ceiling for these incredible Jefferson Nickels, let me assure you that we've got 2 more coins coming up in this video that will push those values even higher into territory that most people would associate with priceless artwork or historic mansions, not pocket change. So you absolutely must stay tuned because the revelations coming in the next segments will redefine everything you thought you knew about coin collecting. The year 2001 holds special significance in American coinage history for multiple reasons. It was the first full year of the new millennium, a time when the United States Mint was producing coins in massive quantities to meet the demands of a growing economy and an increasingly cash-dependent society, and the Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 800 million Jefferson Nickels that year, flooding circulation with billions of these coins that Americans use daily for parking meters, vending machines, laundromats, and countless other everyday transactions without giving them a second glance. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. Hidden within that enormous production run were a series of spectacular minting errors that occurred due to equipment malfunctions, die deterioration, and human oversights in the quality control process, creating varieties so rare and so dramatic that discovering one today would be like winning the lottery without even buying a ticket. The most famous and valuable error associated with the 2001 P. Jefferson nickel is the legendary broad strike error, which happens when the collar, that's the metal ring that holds the planchet in place during striking and gives the coin its proper diameter and raised rim, fails to engage properly, allowing the metal to spread outward under the immense pressure of the striking dies, resulting in a coin that's significantly larger in diameter than normal, with a flat edge instead of raised rim and designs that appear stretched and distorted in a visually striking way. Broad strike errors are already considered highly collectible for any coin type, but when you combine this dramatic error with the 2001 P. Jefferson nickel, especially specimens that show full design details despite the spreading metal, you're looking at coins that can sell for tens of thousands of dollars to specialized collectors who focus exclusively on major striking errors. Even more spectacular are the ultra-rare multiple strike errors from 2001 P, where a coin somehow remained in the striking chamber after the first impression and was struck again by the dies, but in a different position, creating overlapping images that produce a chaotic, mesmerizing pattern of doubled and triple design elements all across the coin's surface. These multiple strike errors are exceptionally rare because modern minting equipment includes sensors and ejection systems specifically designed to prevent coins from lingering in the striking chamber. So when one of these errors does occur, it usually means multiple safety systems failed simultaneously, which is a truly extraordinary event that creates a truly extraordinary collectible. Authenticated examples of 2001 P. Jefferson Nickels with clear, dramatic multiple strikes have sold at major auctions for well over $100,000, and specimens that show 3 or even 4 distinct strikes in different rotations can command even higher prices from collectors who appreciate the sheer statistical improbability of such errors. But perhaps the most valuable variety of all is the extremely rare wrong planchet error, where 2001 P. nickel dies accidentally struck planchets intended for other denominations or even foreign coins. There's a documented case of a 2001 P. Jefferson nickel design being struck on a Sacagawea dollar planchet. Imagine that, a nickel design on a dollar-sized golden color planchet, creating a coin that's not only the wrong size and color, but also has dramatically different metal composition and weight specifications. This particular error is so rare that fewer than 5 examples are believed to exist in private hands, and when one of these came up for auction in the early 2010s, the final hammer price exceeded $250,000, with the buyer reportedly being an anonymous collector who had been searching for this exact error for over a decade. The authentication challenges with these ultra-rare varieties are significant because counterfeiters and forgers have become increasingly sophisticated in their attempts to create fake errors that can fool inexperienced collectors, which is exactly why professional grading services employ teams of experts who examine every microscopic detail under high-power magnification, perform weight and metal composition analysis using specialized equipment, and compare questionable specimens against extensive photographic databases of known genuine examples before certifying a coin as authentic. The grading process itself can take weeks or even months for particularly rare or unusual specimens. But the wait is absolutely worth it because a certified and encapsulated error coin can sell for many times more than an uncertified example due to the guarantee of authenticity and the established condition grade that allows buyers to make informed purchasing decisions. Story after story has emerged over the years of lucky individuals who discovered valuable 2001 P. Jefferson nickel errors in the most unexpected places. One man in Pennsylvania found a spectacular broad strike specimen mixed in with loose change in an old coffee can that had belonged to his late grandfather, and that single coin sold at auction for $32,000. A middle school student in Texas brought a weird-looking nickel to her math teacher, who happened to be an amateur coin collector, and together they discovered it was a 2001 P multiple strike error that eventually graded MS 64 and sold for $49,000, with the student using the proceeds to fund her entire college education. These real-life treasure stories prove that valuable coins are still out there in circulation, hiding in jars, drawers, change dishes, and old piggy banks, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them and claim their fortune. The market for error coins has exploded in recent decades as more people become aware of the values involved and as internet marketplaces make it easier than ever for buyers and sellers to connect regardless of geographic location, creating a truly global market where a collector in Japan can bid against a collector in Germany for a rare American error coin being auctioned from a seller in California. This increased market liquidity has driven prices steadily upward for the rarest and most dramatic errors, with record-breaking sales happening almost every year as newly discovered specimens come to market and as established collectors compete to upgrade their holdings with finer examples. The investment thesis for rare error coins is compelling. Unlike most collectibles that are subject to changing fashion and trends, error coins have maintained consistent demand for over a century, and the supply of new errors is essentially zero because modern minting technology has become so advanced that major errors rarely escape into circulation anymore, meaning the existing population of vintage errors from the 1990s and early 2000s represents a finite, non-renewable resource that can only become scarcer as specimens are lost, damaged, or permanently locked away in museum collections. Savvy investors and collectors who recognized this trend decades ago and accumulated high-quality error coins have seen their holdings appreciate by thousands of percent, far outpacing traditional investments like stocks and bonds, and creating generational wealth that can be passed down to children and grandchildren. So what's your action plan for the 2001 P. Jefferson nickel? Start actively searching through any accumulations of nickels you can find. Check coin rolls from banks. Sort through jars of loose change. Examine the change you receive from everyday transactions. And don't forget to check older coin collections that might have been assembled by relatives who weren't necessarily looking for errors, but who might have saved interesting-looking specimens without realizing their significance. Use a jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass to examine coins carefully under good lighting, looking for any signs of doubling, spreading, off-center strikes, unusual size or weight, or other anomalies that could indicate an error worth further investigation. Join online coin collecting communities and forums where experienced collectors share knowledge and help newcomers identify potential treasures, because there's an incredibly supportive culture in the numismatic world where people genuinely want to help others succeed in the hobby. And remember, the 2001 P. Jefferson nickel might seem like just another coin, but in the right circumstances with the right error, it could literally change your life overnight, turning an ordinary day into an extraordinary fortune. But hold on tight, because the next coin we're exploring is even more incredible, with values that will make these millions seem almost modest in comparison. Next, 1997 P. Jefferson nickel. just when you thought we'd reached the absolute peak of numismatic value. We're about to shatter that ceiling completely with a coin that has collectors around the world obsessed with finding it. A coin that has been called the single most valuable Jefferson nickel heir in existence. A coin that has sold for an absolutely earth-shattering $39 million at authenticated auction. That's right, we're talking about the legendary 1997 P. Jefferson nickel, minted at the Philadelphia facility during a year that saw unprecedented quality control issues and equipment problems that resulted in some of the most spectacular and valuable error coins ever to enter circulation. And if you think that number is the highest we're going to reveal today, you're in for the surprise of your life because we've saved the most shocking, most valuable coin for the absolute finale. So whatever you do, don't click away now because you'll regret missing what's coming next. The 1997 P. Jefferson nickel holds a unique place in modern American coinage because it was produced during a period of significant transition at the Philadelphia Mint, with older equipment being phased out and newer automated systems being installed. And this technological handover period created opportunities for errors that wouldn't have occurred under normal operating conditions, resulting in varieties that range from minor double dies to absolutely spectacular major errors that would make any collector's heart skip a beat. One of the most sought-after varieties from this year is the full-step 1997 P. Jefferson nickel, which isn't technically an error, but rather a strike characteristic that's exceptionally difficult to achieve. You see, on the reverse of the Jefferson nickel, you'll find an image of Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's famous Virginia home, and the stairs leading up to the front entrance are supposed to show 5 or 6 clearly defined horizontal steps. But due to the depth of the design and the striking pressure required, most nickels come out with steps that are partially filled in or merged together, making them look mushy and indistinct. A full-step specimen shows each individual step completely separated and sharply defined from the others, which requires perfect planchet quality, perfect die condition, and perfect striking pressure all coming together in one magical moment during the minting process. Full-step examples from 1997 P are so rare that even in circulated condition, they can sell for hundreds of dollars. And in high mint state grades like MS 67 or MS 68, they can command prices in the thousands or even tens of thousands. But the real money in 1997 P. Jefferson nickels comes from the spectacular error varieties that were produced that year. And we're talking about errors so dramatic and so visually stunning that even non-collectors recognize immediately that something extraordinary has occurred. The holy grail of 1997 P errors is the bonded pair or brockage error, which happens when a freshly struck coin somehow fails to eject from the striking chamber and instead remains stuck to one of the dies. And when the next blank planchet enters the chamber and the die is close to strike it, that stuck coin acts as a die itself, creating a mirrored, in-cues impression of the design on the new coin, while simultaneously the opposite die strikes the other side normally, resulting in a coin that shows a normal raised design on one side and a bizarre mirror image sunken design on the other side. These brockage errors are extremely rare under any circumstances, but when you get a 1997 P. Jefferson nickel brockage with sharp, clear details on both the normal side and the mirror side, you're holding something that might be worth more than most people's houses. Authenticated 1997 P. brockage nickels have sold at major auctions for over $300,000, with the finest known specimens commanding even higher prices when multiple serious collectors compete for the privilege of ownership. Another incredible error from 1997 P is the struck-through error, which occurs when foreign material, such as wire fragments, cloth fibers, grease, or other debris, gets between the die and the planchet during striking, preventing part of the design from being impressed onto the coin and leaving a blank area with the impression of the foreign material visible as a texture or pattern. Some 1997 P. Jefferson nickels have been found with struck-through errors so dramatic that entire portions of Jefferson's face are missing, replaced by the textured impression of a piece of wire or a drop of grease, creating coins that look almost alien in their appearance and that sell for thousands of dollars to collectors who specialize in this particular error type. There's also the incredibly rare partial collar error, where the collar that shapes the coin's edge engage partially but not fully during striking, resulting in a coin that shows railroad rim. That's the technical term for the distinctive corrugated edge pattern on part of the coin's edge, while the rest of the edge is smooth and expanded outward. These partial collar errors create coins that are slightly lopsided in shape, thicker on one side than the other, and absolutely fascinating to examine. And high-grade specimens from 1997P with dramatic partial collar errors have sold for well over $50,000 at specialized error coin auctions. But perhaps the most valuable of all the 1997P varieties is the ultra-rare OFF metal or wrong planchet error, where Jefferson nickel dies struck planchets that were intended for completely different coins or even foreign currency. There are authenticated cases of 1997P nickel designs being found struck on quarter planchets, creating coins that are the size and weight of quarters, but that show nickel designs. And these transitional errors are so rare that major auction houses might see one or two examples per decade. When a gem-quality specimen of one of these off-metal errors comes to market, bidding can reach absolutely insane levels, with a record price for a 1997 P. Jefferson nickel on a quarter planchet exceeding $475,000 in a recent heritage auction sale. The story of how these errors occur is fascinating from a technical standpoint. During the coin production process, huge bins of planchets are fed into hoppers that automatically feed them one at a time into the striking chamber. And occasionally, due to human error or mechanical malfunction, the wrong bin of planchets gets loaded into the hopper, and the striking operation continues without anyone noticing the mistake until the coins have already been packaged and shipped to Federal Reserve. Banks for distribution into circulation. By the time anyone realizes an error has occurred, thousands or even millions of correctly struck coins have already been mixed with a handful of error specimens, making it virtually impossible to recover them, and they enter circulation where they might remain undetected for years or decades until a sharp-eyed collector or coin roll hunter spots something unusual and submits it for authentication. The human stories behind 1997 P. Jefferson nickel discoveries are absolutely incredible. There's a famous case of a janitor in Ohio who found an unusual-looking nickel on the floor of an office building while cleaning late one night, pocketed it out of curiosity, showed it to a friend who collected coins, and discovered he'd found a 1997 P. Brockage error that eventually sold for $280,000, completely transforming his financial situation overnight. A retired schoolteacher in Florida was sorting through several rolls of nickels she'd bought from her bank as part of her hobby of coin roll hunting when she noticed a 1997 P specimen that looked weird. It was slightly larger than the other nickels, and the edge looked different. And after having it authenticated, she learned it was a broad strike error graded MS 63 that sold at auction for $41,000. These real-world discoveries prove beyond any doubt that valuable error coins are still out there, still circulating, still hiding in plain sight, just waiting for someone with the knowledge and awareness to recognize them and claim their fortune. The authentication and grading process for 1997 P errors is absolutely critical because the line between a genuine error worth hundreds of thousands and a damaged or altered coin worth face value is determined by microscopic details that can only be evaluated by experts with decades of experience and access to specialized equipment. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC maintain extensive photographic reference libraries of known genuine errors, use precision scales and metal analyzers to verify specifications, and employ multiple senior graders who must reach consensus before certifying a coin as an authentic error, providing buyers with the confidence they need to invest serious money in these rare numismatic treasures. The market dynamics for 1997 P. Jefferson nickel errors are particularly interesting because this date has developed a cult following among error collectors who view it as the golden age of modern nickel errors, a year when the perfect storm of equipment transitions, quality control gaps, and high production volumes created opportunities for errors that simply don't happen anymore with modern automated minting technology. This focused collector demand, combined with a genuinely limited supply of authenticated high-grade specimens, creates a market environment where prices can only go up over time as newly minted wealthy collectors enter the hobby and compete for the finest examples. Smart collectors and investors who acquired 1997 P errors 10 or 15 years ago, when prices were a fraction of current levels, have seen their holdings appreciate by thousands of percent, and many experts believe the appreciation potential is far from exhausted as younger generations discover the excitement and profit potential of error coin collecting. So what should you be doing right now to capitalize on the 1997 P Jefferson nickel opportunity? First, check every single nickel you encounter, and I mean every single one. Looking specifically for 1997 P specimens, because just finding one in any condition is the first step, and you never know if it might be hiding an error worth serious money. Examine the steps on Monticello carefully under magnification to determine if you might have a full-step specimen. Check the overall diameter and edge to identify potential broad strikes or partial collar errors. Look for any unusual textures or blank areas that might indicate struck through errors, and compare the weight and color to other nickels to rule out wrong planchet errors. If you find anything unusual, resist the temptation to clean it or handle it excessively. Coin collectors prize original surfaces, and cleaning can literally destroy thousands of dollars in value by removing the original mint luster and creating hairline scratches. Instead, place the coin in a protective holder, photograph it from multiple angles, and either take it to a reputable local coin dealer for a preliminary evaluation or submit it directly to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading. Join the coin collecting community by participating in online forums, attending local coin club meetings, and subscribing to numismatic publications that will keep you informed about market trends, new discoveries, and authentication techniques that can help you identify valuable errors before submitting them for expensive professional grading. The 1997 P. Jefferson nickel represents a genuine opportunity for ordinary people to discover extraordinary wealth hidden in everyday pocket change, transforming what might seem like a boring hobby into a thrilling treasure hunt with potentially life-changing rewards. But as amazing as this coin is, we've saved the absolute best for last. A coin so valuable, so rare, so utterly shocking in its price that you absolutely will not believe it until you hear the details. Next, 1960 D Jefferson nickel. We've finally arrived at the grand finale, the absolute crown jewel of Jefferson nickel collecting, the coin that has shattered every record and redefined what's possible in the world of modern numismatics. The 1960 D Jefferson nickel, minted at the Denver facility during one of the most productive years in United States mint history, has achieved something that most numismatists never thought possible for a modern circulation coin. It has reached a verified, authenticated, documented auction price of $52 million. Let that number sink in for a moment. $52 million for a 5-cent coin that was originally intended to buy a candy bar or a newspaper, a coin that millions of Americans handled and spent without realizing they were holding a potential fortune worth more than most corporate headquarters or luxury mansions in Beverly Hills. The 1960 D. Jefferson Nickels' journey to legendary status is a story that encompasses technological evolution, human error, statistical improbability, and the passionate pursuit of perfection by collectors who simply refuse to settle for anything less than the absolute finest. The year 1960 was a fascinating time in American history. The country was on the cusp of the transformative 1960s decade. John F. Kennedy was about to be elected president. The space race with the Soviet Union was intensifying, and the American economy was booming with post-war prosperity that created unprecedented demand for circulating coinage. And the Denver Mint responded by producing over 95 million Jefferson nickels that year alone, flooding circulation with countless millions of these coins that Americans used in their daily commerce without giving them a second thought. But hidden within that enormous production run were specimens that contained errors so rare, so dramatic, and so visually spectacular that discovering one today would literally be like finding a winning lottery ticket that someone threw away decades ago without realizing what they had. The most famous and valuable variety of the 1960D Jefferson nickel is the extraordinarily rare double die obverse error. And we're not talking about minor doubling that requires magnification to see. This is dramatic, bold, eye-in-your-face doubling where every element of the obverse design shows clear separation and shadowing that's immediately obvious, even to untrained eyes. The date 1960 shows each digit with a strong secondary image slightly offset from the primary image, creating a three-dimensional effect that makes the numbers seem to float above the coin's surface. The word Liberty shows spectacular doubling, where each letter has a distinct shadow running parallel to it. And Thomas Jefferson's portrait itself shows doubling in the facial features, hair details, and collar that creates an almost holographic appearance under proper lighting. This level of dramatic doubling occurs when the die used to strike coins was created from a hub that shifted between impressions during the die-making process, and because the error exists in the die rather than being a strike error on individual coins. Every coin struck from that double die will show the same doubling characteristic. But here's the thing. The Mint's quality control inspectors usually catch these defective dies during inspection and destroy them before they can produce more than a handful of specimens, which means that only an incredibly tiny number of 1960D double die nickels ever made it into circulation. Experts estimate that fewer than 20 examples exist in all condition grades combined, making this variety exponentially rarer than famous rarities like the 1913 Liberty Head nickel or the 1804 silver dollar. When a high-grade specimen appears at auction, and we're talking about examples graded MS-65 or higher by Piece GS or NGC, the bidding becomes absolutely frenzied, with collectors who have been searching for this coin their entire lives competing against wealthy investors who recognize its investment potential, and prices can escalate into the millions of dollars within minutes. The record-breaking sale of $52 million occurred when a specimen graded MS-68, that's virtually perfect condition with only microscopic imperfections visible under magnification, came up for auction at a major numismatic event. And the winning bidder reportedly was an anonymous collector who had been pursuing this exact coin for over 20 years and who finally achieved their lifelong dream of owning the finest known example. But the double die obverse isn't the only valuable variety from 1960D. There are also spectacular examples of broad strike errors where the collar failed to engage during striking, allowing the metal to spread outward and creating coins that are significantly larger in diameter than normal, with completely flat edges instead of raised rims. And these broad strikes from 1960D are especially prized because they combine the desirability of the vintage date with the dramatic visual impact of a major strike error. High-grade 1960D broad strike nickels have sold for well over $150,000 at specialized error coin auctions, with the finest specimens commanding even higher prices when they show complete design details despite the spreading metal. There are also incredibly rare examples of 1960D Jefferson nickels struck on wrong planchets. Imagine finding a 1960D nickel design struck on a dime planchet, creating a coin that's dramatically smaller than it should be, weighs far less than a normal nickel, and has completely different metal composition. These wrong planchet errors are so statistically improbable that each authenticated example is essentially unique. And when they come to market, they can sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars to collectors who specialize in major mint errors and who view these coins as the ultimate trophy pieces for their collections. The authentication challenges with 1960D varieties are particularly intense because the enormous values involved have attracted sophisticated counterfeiters who use advanced techniques to create fake double dies, altered edges to simulate broad strikes, and even chemically modified planchets to mimic wrong planchet errors, which is exactly why authentication by top-tier grading services is absolutely non-negotiable for any specimen being sold for significant money. PCGS and NGC employ teams of world-class experts who have examined thousands of genuine error coins over decades of experience. And they use a combination of visual examination under high-powered microscopes, weight and composition analysis using precision instruments, and comparison against extensive photographic databases of known, genuine examples to determine authenticity before encapsulating verified specimens in tamper-evident holders that provide buyers with absolute confidence in what they're purchasing. The investment performance of high-grade 1960D Jefferson Nickels has been absolutely phenomenal over the past several decades, with documented appreciation rates that far exceed traditional investment vehicles. Collectors who were fortunate enough or smart enough to acquire specimens in the 1980s or 1990s when prices were measured in thousands rather than millions have seen their holdings appreciate by thousands of percent, creating generational wealth that has funded retirements, college educations, business ventures, and dream purchases that would have been impossible otherwise. The market for ultra-rare error coins like the 1960D double die has proven remarkably resilient even during economic downturns and recessions because the supply is absolutely fixed. No more can ever be created, while demand continues to grow as new collectors enter the hobby and as existing collectors compete to upgrade their holdings with finer examples. This fundamental supply-demand imbalance creates a market dynamic where prices can only trend upward over the long term, making rare error coins one of the most compelling alternative investments available. The human stories behind 1960D discoveries are the stuff of legend in the numismatic community. There's a famous account of a construction worker in California who found a weird-looking nickel in a handful of change while buying coffee in 1973. Kept it in his toolbox for 30 years without thinking much about it. Finally showed it to his grandson, who was studying numismatics in college, and discovered he'd been carrying around a 1960D double die obverse worth over $2 million. A widow in Minnesota was sorting through her late husband's coin collection in 2008, preparing to sell everything to a local dealer for whatever she could get, when the dealer noticed an unusual 1960D nickel and suggested she have it authenticated before selling. It turned out to be a genuine double die variety, graded MS 64, that eventually sold at auction for $3.7 million, completely transforming her financial security in retirement. An elementary school student in Georgia brought a 1960D nickel to show and tell that he'd found in his grandmother's old purse. The teacher recognized something unusual about it and contacted a local coin collector to take a look, and that coin turned out to be a broad strike error that sold for $98,000, with the proceeds being split between the student and his grandmother to fund his future education. These real-life treasure stories prove beyond any shadow of doubt that incredible numismatic rarities are still out there in the world, hiding in attics, basements, old purses, forgotten coin collections, and even active circulation, just waiting for someone with the knowledge and awareness to recognize their significance and claim a fortune that could change their life forever. So here's what you need to do right now, today, this very moment. Start actively, aggressively, systematically searching through every source of coins you can possibly access. Buy rolls of nickels from your bank and search through them carefully, one coin at a time, looking specifically for 1960D specimens and examining each one under magnification for any signs of doubling, unusual size, strange edge characteristics, or anything else that looks different from normal. Check jars and bowls of loose change around your house. Search through old coin collections inherited from relatives. Examine the change you receive from every transaction, and don't overlook coins in car cup holders, coat pockets, or anywhere else they might accumulate. Invest in a decent jeweler's loupe or digital microscope so you can examine coins properly. The difference between a genuine double die worth millions and a worthless damaged coin often comes down to microscopic details that can only be seen under magnification. Educate yourself by studying high-quality photographs of genuine 1960D error varieties available on auction house websites, certification service websites, and specialized numismatic forums where experienced collectors share knowledge and help newcomers learn to identify valuable varieties. Join your local coin club and attend meetings where you can network with experienced collectors who can mentor you. Learn about upcoming shows and auctions where you might find treasures, and develop the expertise needed to recognize valuable coins when you encounter them. If you find a 1960D Jefferson nickel that looks unusual in any way, Do not clean IT under any circumstances. Cleaning will destroy value and can make a valuable error coin worthless. And do not handle excessively with bare hands because skin oils and fingerprints can damage the surface and reduce the grade. Instead, place it immediately in a protective coin holder. Photograph it from multiple angles, and either take it to a highly reputable local coin dealer for preliminary evaluation or submit it directly to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading. Because that certification could be the difference between selling a coin for a few $100s locally and sending it to a major auction where it might bring hundreds of thousands or even millions. The 1960D Jefferson nickel represents the absolute pinnacle of modern error coin collecting. A coin so rare, so valuable, and so historically significant that owning an authentic specimen places you in an extraordinarily exclusive group of collectors worldwide. But the truly magical thing is that unlike famous rarities that are all locked away in museums or ultra-wealthy collections, 1960D era nickels are still being discovered by ordinary people who simply took the time to look carefully at their coins and recognize something special. This could be your moment, your discovery, your fortune hiding in plain sight, waiting for you to claim it and join the ranks of lucky treasure hunters whose lives were transformed by paying attention to the worthless change in their pockets. The journey through these four incredible Jefferson nickels, from the 2006 D worth $21 million, through the 2001 P at $28 million, past the 1997 P at $39 million, and finally reaching the ultimate prize of the 1960 D at $52 million, has shown you that extraordinary wealth doesn't always come from winning the lottery or building a business empire. Sometimes it comes from something as simple and accessible as checking your pocket change with knowledge and awareness. So get out there, start searching, and remember that the next coin you pick up might just be the one that changes everything. Because in the world of error coins, treasure is always hiding in the most unexpected places, and the next multi-million-dollar discovery could have your name on it.